US President Donald Trump has announced a 25% tariff on all car and light truck imports into the country.
US President Donald Trump has announced a 25% tariff on all car and light truck imports into the country.
Look, in his first few days in office, Donald Trump has clearly again threatened Europe with tariffs. How bad could the consequences for Germany be?
To the United States, where Donald Trump has threatened to impose 25% tariffs on imports from the European Union, accusing the bloc of taking advantage of his country.
Germany at the heart of the European continent, a country with a long history in automotive and technology production, a giant in international trade, and above all, a country that has strengthened its economic power, thanks to years of intense exchanges with the United States. But on March 27, 2025, the harsh voices raised from Berlin showed that it had no reservations about Washington's new customs policies, which were described as protectionist. Germany, which until then had tried to maintain a diplomatic balance within the European Union, heard that the Trump administration's 25% tariff on automobile imports was just the beginning and sent a clear message. If they underestimate us, we will respond with everything we have. Moreover, Germany is not alone this time. On the same day, France reacted in a similar way, saying, "We are not afraid of a tough trade fight with the United States," giving momentum to Europe's united stance. American officials must be beginning to realize the seriousness of this anger, because Germany is Europe's industrial giant and a global exporter of automobiles and machinery. If this move proceeds step by step, it could lead to an economic rupture between Washington and Berlin, perhaps not seen for decades. When a senior figure in the German government said, "Nothing is rolled out," the first thing that came to mind was taxes and restrictions on US tech giants. Until now, Germany has generally taken a softer line with its European allies and avoided a direct tariff war with the United States. But on that day, Germany said, "Our measures will not be limited to automobiles. There could be very harsh responses in technology, agriculture, and perhaps taxes on digital services." This was almost a "if you're waiting for them." We ready response to the Trump administration's warning that it started with 25%, but if necessary, bigger tariffs are on the way. At the same time, signals from Berlin implied that Germany would not sit idly by if the US imposed new tariffs on steel or technology products, and might even act jointly with the European Union. This protectionist tug-of-war, which has started over the last 2 years over automobiles, looks set to expand to whole new sectors such as electric vehicles, battery technology, and even artificial intelligence software. The reason why Germany's position is so important is that it is the engine of the European Union. A considerable portion of the EU's total trade volume revolves around products originating from Germany, especially when it comes to automotive brands such as Mercedes, BMW, Audi, and Volkswagen own millions of vehicles on US roads. According to estimates, Germany's automotive and parts exports to the US exceeded $35 billion by 2024. In addition, machinery and equipment, chemical products, and high-tech devices also occupy a significant slice. Germany is one of the leading suppliers to the US automobile market, but Trump's 25% tariff has shaken the sector. When sales of German cars slowed down due to price hikes, the Berlin government began to say, "We can't keep quiet about such a unilateral measure." Not only that, on the morning of March 28, 2025, the German government spokesperson said, "If necessary, we can also impose additional duties on American vehicles, American electronic products, or agriculture." For the American administration, this is not an easy interlocutor because Germany is on the front line, not just as a country, but as the leading economy of the entire European Union. Other major members such as France, Italy, and Spain are also talking about the option of joint retaliatory packages against the US under the umbrella of the European Commission. The most concrete indication of this option came when the European Commission leader said, "US auto tariffs are a direct blow to the European economy, and we have our countermeasures ready." Some officials have even suggested that these measures could not be limited to the automobile sector, but could impose additional obligations on American airlines or technology platforms. Such a development could upset the global trade balance. Canada's threat of retaliation on the one hand, and Europe's giant market on the other. The US-EU and US-Canada trade flows, totaling $1.8 trillion, could be on the verge of breaking up piece by piece. The Berlin administration statement that taxes on US tech giants are also on our agenda has reignited the digital services tax debate. Germany and France had taken some steps in this direction a few years ago, but failed to implement them due to US opposition. Now, there is an approach that says if Trump is hitting us on automobiles, steel, and energy, then our hands are not tied on digital taxes. This approach will mean that US social media and e-commerce platforms will face additional costs in Europe. Of course, retaliation may not stop there. There is talk of Germany simultaneously imposing additional tariffs on American agricultural products, reducing import quotas, or making regulations that would make it more difficult for US producers in the European market. This could also anger farmers in the US, as Europe is an important selling point for US agricultural products. If all this comes to a head, the Trump administration could be under enormous pressure at home, with Germany leading the challenge against Trump's auto tariffs. Saying it won't give up, Berlin is preparing to take a decisive stance, not only at the trade ministry level, but also at the highest levels. On March 27, 2025, the German finance minister was quoted as saying, "We will not hesitate to defend our national interests. The US may be our largest trading partner, but this does not mean a one-sided relationship." Then the economy minister warned Washington that such high tariffs would have devastating consequences for world trade. It seems that Germany is ready to take off its long, hidden mask of diplomatic courtesy. The fall of this mask could create major problems, not only at the trade table, but also in transatlantic relations. While some in the United States believe that Trump will see the light, and that he will suffer greatly if he confronts the EU and Canada, at the same time the president is determined to win. Experts say that if Germany becomes the engine and drags the EU behind it, Canada could announce its own retaliatory package at the same time, putting crushing pressure on the US. Trump risks losing $1.8 trillion in trade flows because of the tariffs. They argue for the disruption of German automobile and machinery equipment. Sales to the US alone could put tens of thousands of workers on both sides out of work. This is not a scenario that anyone wants to risk, but politics seems to have overtaken economic reasoning. This is exactly what Berlin means when it says nothing is ruled out. If necessary, we will pay the price and retaliate. Germany's giant car brands are also trying to protect their own interests if tariffs on the US market rise. Companies like BMW, Mercedes, and Audi may have to shift more production to the US, but due to the new tariffs, may make it more difficult for them to procure materials. The picture is therefore multidimensional. German companies are both telling their own governments, "Please don't complicate things with too harsh retaliation," and calling on the Trump administration, "The tariffs you are imposing on us are unreasonable. Withdraw them as soon as possible." But in the post-miracle era, the big names in German politics are of the opinion that we won't give in anymore, we have made enough gestures. Even at the total loss of the car brands, Germany is unwilling to compromise in the name of national honor and European interests. This line is also supported by public opinion. Relations with the US are valuable, but not one-sided is a common refrain in Berlin. As of March 28, Trump attacked us with a 25% tax on our cars. Why shouldn't we fight back? Many Germans said in street interviews. Another dimension of the European picture is the behavior of France and Italy. Both of these countries may find it difficult to penetrate major US markets in agriculture, luxury goods, and technology. If the US were to raise tariffs, France would be hit hard on products such as wine and cheese, and Italy would be hit hard on fashion and food. In response, French leaders are threatening to impose tariffs on American agricultural products. Berlin is signaling that it may act in parallel with Paris on this issue. It is even possible to prepare a joint package at the EU Commission level. There is a lot of talk about adding items such as digital service taxes on American technology giants to this package. The question is whether retaliatory measures could also target American aerospace companies such as Boeing or Silicon Valley startups. Such a scenario could bring the transatlantic crisis to a new climax. If on the one hand, Canada starts cutting energy and Europe starts digital taxes, the US could suddenly find itself in diplomatic isolation. Since March 27th, the German media has been full of headlines. "We will not bow to Trump. They've imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum before. We've been patient, but now we can't accept them targeting our automobile sector. People are saying in particular. Employees of Mercedes, BMW, Audi and Volkswagen say that these tariffs are seriously damaging their companies, that exports have fallen and some production lines have slowed down. German trade unions are also on the streets calling for, if America is starting a trade war, our government must not stand by and watch. Under such domestic pressure, the Berlin government may be forced to respond harshly to Trump. This is the truth behind the headlines. Germany may strike back against Trump tariffs with all means. Germany, outwardly calm, is internally storming. And this storm could turn into a hurricane that could engulf the United States. After all, Germany's leadership on the European stage is colliding with Trump's threat that if the EU and Canada unite, we will impose tariffs that are bigger than we planned. It remains to be seen how far Berlin will go, how united the EU will be, whether there will be a truly synchronized path with Canada. But judging by the current harsh rhetoric, if Washington does not agree to a realistic compromise, Germany could push the button on tariffs on both cars and US tech giants. This would shake the fragile points of an already volatile global economy. Trade wars have proven time and again that there are no winners. But the Trump administration insists that as a great power, we can lose Germany. On the other hand, insists enough is enough. We will respond to these tariffs that turn into aggression. France and other countries, especially France, can support any development that concerns Europe. If such coordination is achieved, a significant portion of the US's $1.8 trillion trade flow would be jeopardized. So how should we interpret this picture? Some observers believe that the announcement of retaliatory packages by Europe and Canada, either together or separately, would push the US to the bargaining table. Others say Trump is determined not to back down. This could lead to a major crisis. It is clear that Germany will not waste its automotive sector, the backbone of its economy, and the EU may not leave Germany alone. That's why Germany may strike back against Trump tariffs with everything it has is not an exaggerated headline, but a summary of a harsh reality. Berlin is using both its historical and economic weight to challenge the US to take us seriously, or retaliation is inevitable. At the same time, it is fueling a debate on global leadership. The EU has long been considered disorganized, but the search for a common stance against America could mobilize a sense of unity. It remains to be seen whether Trump's divide and rule strategy will bring different countries in the EU against each other. However, the Germany-France axis does not seem to leave much space in this regard. Everyone is now wondering whether the industry, agriculture, and technology lobbies in the US will try to put the brakes on their own government. Because if Germany retaliates at full capacity, American companies will have great difficulty in the European market, which will lead to criticism of Trump in domestic politics. Moreover, if Canada steps in at the same time, there is the possibility of losing energy and parts supplies in the north, and automotive and technology markets in Europe. This would be a double blow. In other words, political decision makers in Berlin are perhaps hoping for a softening of the US domestic politics, but the signals since March 27th suggest that Trump has no intention of backing down. If you move against us, we will impose much bigger tariffs, the president has repeatedly said. German analysts say there is such a huge trade flow. We pay the price together, but America loses heavily. Will Trump really risk that? They ask. The answer is still vague. What do you think about this? Is Germany really going to spare no effort against Trump tariffs? Or is this more of a threat to raise its hand at the bargaining table? If Germany, as the EU's largest economy and automotive giant, really takes steps to shake the American market, will Trump back down or will he insist on a win? With the addition of Canada, is the US taking a gamble that could put its $1.8 trillion trade flow at risk? Perhaps at the end of all this tension, a last-minute negotiating table will be set, and a middle ground will be found, where everyone compromises. But the current rhetoric is too harsh, and there is no sign of compromise. Don't forget to share your comments with us. If you subscribe to our channel and like our video, we can continue to follow the developments moment by moment. Now that Germany's anger has been echoed in the rest of Europe, the question of whether Trump's unilateral trade moves will be halted will be on the agenda for some time to come. It seems that as the war of nerves between the big players and global trade continues, Germany is set to be one of the most critical fronts in this war. We will continue to follow every step of this great struggle. Who knows, maybe Washington will put the brakes on itself when Berlin puts the final point. Otherwise, this trade war, which is rapidly heading towards an abyss, may leave the world economy with irreparable wounds. Time will tell, and we are eagerly waiting.